The personal views expressed by our podcast guests are their own and are not legal advice or official statements by their organizations. Hello, my name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. This is the Data Diva Talks Privacy podcast, where we discuss data privacy issues with industry leaders around the world with information that businesses need to know now. I have a very special guest on the show, all the way from Florida, Lisa Manns. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Authenticid. Welcome.
Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, it's not fair. You're on here on the show almost like we don't know each other, but you and I, we chatted on LinkedIn. We had another phone chat, and it was great. Like, I feel like these are the best discussions where I feel like we could have recorded like our initial talk, and that could have been a podcast. But
absolutely.
I was really fascinated by you and the work that you do with Authenticid and some of your thoughts and ideas around privacy. It's such a hard issue around children, but give me your background story in terms of how you became Chief Executive Officer of Authenticid.
Sure. So I think, every CEO, every founder, every visionary has an interesting story. So mine is rooted, really, it started 30 years ago. And I'll interject and say that 5 years ago, if you would have told me, or 6 years ago, really now, if you would have told me that I'd be doing this podcast right here and talking about the things that we're about to discuss, I'd have laughed at you. 30 years ago, I became a mom this year. And my family grew up as the internet took growth and became what it is today. Back in the days of MySpace and even earlier with just little chat rooms and I've seen it all. And really, my kids, my youngest is now 13, my eldest will be 30 this year. They've taught me more than any book or any leader really, I think, could have. I think we gravely underestimate our kids in regards to their understanding of technology, which makes them dangerous to a degree. Because they, especially as they're tweens and teens, they get that Dunning-Kruger effect where they know enough, but they don't know what they don't know, but they think that they know everything, So that's a whole other podcast, Debbie. That's a whole other podcast. But being a parent, my eldest was extremely smart. In second grade, he was reading at a college level, and the teacher said, we don't know what we're going to do with him. So they put him in front of a computer. And my first experience with inappropriate images on a computer happened when he was in third grade. It was back in the day of pop-ups, right? Pop-up ads. He had chicken pox. And he was so smart. If anybody's a gamer, there was this great game that still exists today that people play, and it had a book that was like this thick, and he had broke the spine on day 2 of being home with chicken pox. And day 3 or 4, I came down to check my email on the family computer that was because we only had one back then. We didn't have a whole bunch of mobile devices. Went to the living room, checked, and I said, holy crud, what is this? And I grabbed my husband at the time and said, what are you doing? My mother's here. What are you looking online when I go to bed? And I let into him. Come to find out, we checked the history, and it was my son. And what we believe happened is that he clicked on the wrong pop-up, but he was exposed to it. And then all of a sudden, because he was extremely intelligent, he was typing in words that he could put together, because 9, 10-year-old boys know more than they should about certain things, and they talk on the bus. And I mean, it wasn't that long ago that I remember. We have to remember, even though we might have different roles and we have different hats on all day, as a parent, as a CEO, we are still responsible to role model good behavior in front of minors at any time. And I do my best to live my life as if my children have a body cam on me at all times. Now, am I perfect? No. But in those situations, he put words together and he was finding all kinds of stuff. And so we had to, we took computer time away, and he had a gaming console. We learned as our kids learned how to, because I remember as a teenager, then he got in trouble on a game on a computer. He got in trouble at school, and nothing major or anything, but we took away the computers. Well, he got online on the gaming console. There was always a way, right? So we have to stop underestimating our kids because they're creative, and we have to start really thinking like them and developing solutions. I believe in being a solutionist. I think that while we sit there and we talk about the problems, because that's important, but talking about them with no end resolution and no solution does nothing to further improve the environment that we've created. And it's up to us. It's our job. We created this environment. We created the 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 lack of patience, the immediate gratification environment, and I have kind of used Walmart as a verb because I you can't be Walmarting life that everything is cheap and replaceable and accessible and can now just be delivered to your home. I mean, and put away for you with their delivery service. They'll come in and put your groceries away now. So, you know, we created that environment out of desire for convenience. So we need to hold ourselves accountable to come up with solutions that will make it a safer environment. I don't complain about convenience because I like convenient. I think everybody likes convenient. But I want to make sure it's kind of like when you choose food. Are you going to choose a nutritious, healthy meal every day and one day of McDonald's? Or are you going to choose McDonald's every day out of convenience and tank your health? I'll be the first one to tell you, I'll eat a piece of chocolate cake, but if I'm baking it, it's going to be a chocolate beet cake because I'm going to sneak a vegetable in there.
You're right.
I grew up learning about things through my kids vicariously. I remember learning from my son about Omegle because at 15, he thought it was okay to ask me because we're a very open household, a very communicative household. I don't believe in major censorship. I believe everything, especially music. Let's have a conversation. I use everything as a conversation tool. So he said to me one day, he was, I think, 15, 16. He goes, "Hey, mom, do you know what a meat spin is? Before anybody does it, don't Google it. Don't go look it up. You don't want to know." I found out, and I immediately got onto the issues of, hey, I'm the adult that bought that device. Hey, I could be held accountable for you looking at this information. Hey, do you know as a minor that could send me to jail? That because we're seeing that now. We're seeing parents being held accountable for the actions of their minor children up until 17 years, 11 months, not just financially, but criminally. So we have to be mindful about that. And as CEOs, we have to be mindful of that potential for our customer base. Because without having verifiable, accurate age verification for minors, not adults, but for minors, we run major risks of all kinds of stuff with minors on there. predatory behaviors, third-party corporations sending advertising materials for credit cards, for loans, and I could talk about content for days.
Well, there are two things I want to talk with you about. One is, well, first of all, we have an international audience, and I think, we're seeing a lot of laws being passed around the world around age verification,
Absolutely.
right? And so I think US, we have a very unique problem with age verification. So I think just having a patchwork of laws, different states think they want to do age verification a different way. Some of the kids that they're trying to verify don't have identification, right? First of all, tell me about the challenge. What makes age verification challenging in the US?
Oh, how many hours do we have? So nationally, it's really the same types of challenges that we have internationally, right? Because you've got multiple, for example, let's talk about Europe, because there's a whole bunch of countries. They all have their own rules, but they at least could unite under GDPR for the most part, right? Here in the States, you've got federal law, and then you've got state law, and then you may have splinters of different federal laws in some states, but not all states, because they don't adopt everything. My favorite example is BIPA, because BIPA triggers so much for COPA. Once someone had 9 times out of 10, once a company gets hit for a BIPA violation, it automatically triggers a COPA violation because they've collected biometric information on a minor that did not have verifiable prior parental consent. Those are the really big key words. Verifiable prior parental consent. We just saw a very big lawsuit settled, right, down in Texas with Meta. There's, and I'm not trying to poke the bear today. With all of the money that's been made with data, some of that money needs to go towards protecting these kids from the damage that's already happened over the last two decades. You have kids who have sustained the damage that we're seeing the repercussions of now in teenagers 20 years ago. And those kids are having babies now. So we're reaching what Gardner referred to as the app-directed generation, because there's an app for everything. And part of the anxiety issues that are coming up is because if there isn't an app for that, they don't know how to navigate through life. So we have to start to really take the reins and balance that digital life, real life, take those digital cleanses as a family, because if you're not role modeling the behavior, you can't live life as a hypocrite. This generation is not the same. They are not afraid to tell you you're being a hypocrite right to your face at all. As a mom of a 13-year-old, I will tell you right now, she has no issue. She is her mother's daughter, and she hates hearing that. But I mean, today.
Well,
tomorrow could be different.
The way that companies have traditionally tried to handle age verification has been kind of a tick box exercise. So, hey,
check a box.
Yeah, check a box. Like, I pinky swear I'm over 13. So there are two things, in my view, that are happening that are just disconnected. So one is that children can get online. They click a box and say, "Oh, I swear I'm, under this age," and then they can do whatever, right? But then, so the companies don't really know how old the person is if they are who they say that they are. But then we have schools that actually curate data and information about students who are in school, how old they are, and all that other type of stuff. And so those two systems don't work together.
They don't. And
Right.
here's why. There are a couple of things that parents and most people don't know either. First of all, COPA does not necessarily apply to schools and school districts directly, but it does apply to any of the third-party apps or like the ed tech apps, etc., that they utilize. So schools have to make sure they do their due diligence and that those companies are COPA compliant on top of FERPA compliant, and most schools don't do that. And I'm not trying to say anything to offend any schools. I have done my research on things. The other thing is that when you go in to register your students every year, kindergarten roundup, it's a milestone. Everybody goes in, you've moved to a new school district, you register for the new year. You sign over the rights to the schools for the data that they create at the school. So it's the school's responsibility to protect the data. And a lot of people go, okay, well, what is the data? The data is anything that they enter, anything they do at the school. So it goes from all of the registration paperwork down to, because they're assigned a student number. Most people don't realize that when they create a Gmail account during their digital citizenship class, well, that's usually some form of something with their student number, which we all know is a big no-no because that's directly using PII. But because it's easier and nobody knows that that's their student number, that's what they use. And it might involve like their, three of their initials or something else. But that's still using PII. And it's not safe because if somebody picks up that email, they can track all of that PII, all that personally identifiable information, their name, their age, their birth date, their social security number, which is now in school records because it didn't used to be asked for. Now it is. Their home address, their emergency contacts, the address of the emergency contacts. Let's talk about HIPAA because now we're going to cross over into HIPAA for personal information because all of their medical records are there, who their doctor is, who their dentist is. We're going to talk about what they checked out in the library. So imagine if your child's personal data was all bubble wrapped like an ornament for Christmas, right? So in that ornament is going to be all of the information I've already listed, plus all of their likes from the school library and what they ate for lunch for the last 2 years. So if somebody picked up that package on the dark web, how easy do you think it would be for them to pull your kid? They know all their likes. They know what groups to go into. Like if they checked Harry Potter out of the library 19 times in the last 3 years, you think they're going to join a Facebook group about Harry Potter and for Potterheads? Because your kid might be in there. Other data that they're going to find. How are they doing in school? What are their classes? Should I say, oh, I tutor on the side? Oh, well, I could really use this help. I bet you could. You have in these situations, you have to think like a predator as a parent. This is another hat you have to put on. And let's again not underestimate kids. Kids are not telling the truth when they go online. Again, mom of 6, grandma of 8. So I have a little bit of experience here. My third born child will turn 26 if I let him breathe long enough this December. Bless his heart. Let me say that again. But he has profiles that make him look like he's 34 because when he was a teenager, that's what he did. He lied about his age. When he was young, he lied about his age. I think he was like 11 or 12 when he started getting on his social media. I know he was 15 and a half lying on dating apps about his age, and that's how he met his wife. So, you know, he was lucky that
Right.
he didn't meet someone else, you
Totally.
know?
Yeah.
But, you know, we can't look, and I think I said this to you on our phone conversation. If somebody stops by and says, "Hey, you look fantastic. What are you, 45?" I will say thank you and keep it moving. It
Right.
is human nature to lie about your age. I remember being 13. My parents took me on a cruise on NCL, and we all sat at the big table, in the restaurant. And coming over was another couple of families, and they had kids that were from 16 to 18. Guess what? I lied about my age because I wanted to hang out with the cool kids, the older kids. That's
Right.
human nature. So we have to start taking that into account.
Right. Right. Oh
God.
my goodness. Well, tell me about Authenticid and what is your unique thing that your company does?
Okay, so what we're doing is first of all, we have authentic keys that we're going to be giving away to minors for free. And those keys will go to Authentilocks, which will be at schools. And the purpose for the locks in that situation, the keys will act as an MFA, a multi-factor authentication piece, and will help them build an SSO because a lot of schools are moving over to SSO because too many points of too many entry points allows for too many opportunities for a cyber attack. So moving over to an SSO,
Yeah,
and
single
that'll be
sign
an
on.
MFA.
I just want to single sign on just for people who don't understand what that is. So
That's one of the uses for the Authentilock. But when it comes to once we have enough students on board, what will happen is the Authentilock will then get an upgrade and it will be turned for corporations. So that corporations will then, when the key is presented, they will then get the age group of the user. No PII, but they'll get the age group. Our age groups currently sit at 0 to 5, 6 to 9, 10 to 12, 13 to 15, and 16 years to 17 years, 11 months, young workers age. The reason I created them that way is because of GDPR and COPA being two different ages. But that 10 to 15-year age group, those two groups are wily. So you kind of, and we want to just kind of stair step it so that we have some enhanced AI where it asks behavioral questions and social questions to kind of get an idea of the ages. Like I told you, what happens at the end of a first date. And it'll be interesting to see what the questions are, how they're answered socially, emotionally, intellectually. There could be a box which could be identified by a kindergartner as red, maybe maroon or burgundy from an older child, a different word for the same color. And maybe it would be called a cube instead of a box or a square. But we use enhanced AI to discern the age group, but it already knows the age group because it's assigned initially at the schools. So, which is, I'm still very happy with that. So when it goes to the corporations and the corporation says, hey, this is a 10 to 12-year-old, they then will have the opportunity to deny access completely, open access, but receive verifiable prior parental consent because they'll be asked, do you want to continue? And then there'll be a deployment, you know, from, the kid putting in the email address to the parents to get prior parental consent. They will then have the opportunity to augment reality. So if somebody were to step into a game, because we saw that, a lot of us saw the stories about, walking into bars or walking into strip clubs and, no, not a 10 to 12-year-old. That's not appropriate. They'll have the ability to not allow that anymore. So It's open access, deny access, augment access, or limit access. So they can say, okay, these content triggers are not age appropriate. This language is not age appropriate. And it'll give parents the ability to work with companies, because I am a big believer in a community driven, grown, positive future for the next generation. You can't just say, oh, because we hear it all the time with the news stories, right? Where were the parents? Where were the teachers? Where was the owner of the building? What person manufactured the vehicle, or whatever the incident was based around, right? Because I don't want to use that other 3-letter word. The weapon, right? Everybody's so busy pointing fingers instead of joining hands. I think that's key, right? Because if we create a safety net together, we're going to create a better future. I don't believe in necessarily taking away. I think we need to balance using devices, but kids have so many different devices now. They're always plugged in. It could be a watch, it could be a phone, it could be a laptop, it could be earbuds with an iPod or whatever. There's all kinds of stuff that they're plugged into all the time. You've got video game systems, there's all kinds of wearables, right? You've got the Internet of Things where they're just always plugged in. Yes, it's like Gartner said, it's the app directed generation. They like labels, they like having directions, they like boundaries, especially if they've created the boundaries. Yeah, it's tricky because it's new in a lot of cases for us. But I think we need to teach kids delayed gratification, because we've lost that by creating all this convenience a lot, because we don't have to wait. I mean, look at streaming video, right? We don't have to watch a commercial if we don't want to.
Right.
Kids can watch cartoons 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I only got it on Saturday morning until 11:30, and then I got American Bandstand with Dick Clark. So we are not the same. And I think we kind of need to get back to that. And every generation is the same, but they're different. It's just I remember my grandparents saying to my parents, "Is she going to watch TV all the time? Or is she going to come talk to us?" Well, of course I would talk to them, but I also want, if I had a chance to watch the TV, because I didn't get the God box. Dad had the God box on the weekends, right? And during the week, we only had 5 channels back then. So, he was in charge of the TV at 7 o'clock after dinner. So, I never got to pick anything. We were considered to be addicted to TV, just like we say that these kids are addicted to phones and addicted to social media. Now, there's a lot more psychology that's gone into this, but I also think that there's a lot more psychology that went into the cartoons and TV shows and those kinds of things. When I was a kid, it just evolved. It constantly evolves, especially as we add more and more of the psychology into it. So we have giving companies the information. This is the age group you're working with right here. This end user is in this age group. They can then look at their individual state laws and say, okay, granted the AADCA is gone right now, and that's the age appropriate design code. It was in California, and now it's been taken away. But there, obviously, with COSA, there are design elements that the AADCA brought to light that's going to be a federal law. States are going to come through and say the same thing in different ways, but they need to know the age to rewrite those privacy policies, those community standards, behavioral standards, so that kids can understand them. That's a design element. That's a content element.
Before we get too far, why don't you talk a little bit about COSA? Because that's a new development that happened recently.
Oh yeah, with
Well,
COSA and COPA 2.0
yeah.
being passed. Woohoo!
Well,
In the Senate. That's very
what is
exciting.
COSA?
It is the Children's Online Safety Act. So that's specifically going to talk about design elements and, you know, the dark patterns so that people stay on longer, types of advertising that minors can see, just a wide variety of things in regards to design. I have to get really deep into it, and I don't study too deeply of a law and start translating until it's passed both the House and the Senate. It's been signed, because we'll see 65 versions between now and the time it comes out. But
Right. That's true.
for example, COPA 2.0 has been sitting on the table since before I started even pondering this company in 2019. Just to give you an idea of how long it takes for these things to go through and how many different rewrites there are. COPA 2.0 makes me a little nervous. And you might say, why? Well, there's an element in there, or there was, that allowed 15-year-olds to turn off their location without, or deny their parent the ability to track their location on their phones. I'm going to wait for the interpretation. I'm going to wait for the final result of the law, but that does concern me, because because in that case, we're giving minors, no, I would just pull the phone. I mean,
Right.
I just pull the
Yeah.
phone.
Well,
But
yeah.
not every family can do that, because you've got single parent families, and maybe the other parent bought the phone. And so then there's a whole, it can just be a mess. But there's things that need to be addressed in there. But, in every law there is, in every law.
Yeah, totally. Things like PG-13 and clicking the box where it's 13 is going to be a whole different ball game. And I think it's just going to create
Right.
more complexity for the user and a lot more work for the parent, right? Because, these
Oh,
companies
yeah.
want to have proof that the parent is somehow involved in these
Verifiable parental
situations.
consent.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're supposed to keep a log of that. They're supposed to keep a log of that. The interesting thing in conversation with my kids as well is that COPA has created this false sense of maturity and independence in late tweens, early teens at 13. Because I'm 13 now, I can get online. No, they just can now collect your data. Let me explain. We're not doing a good enough job of explaining that law. We're doing a great job of talking to kids about how to talk to other people online. We've been talking to each other online. We don't always talk to people the way we should talk to them online. Just like kids are going to do that too. It's that whole hypocrisy and transparency thing and holding ourselves accountable. We have to think like that. We have to think, if the law says I can be online, and we have to be mindful about when we speak about it. Because I've heard industry leaders talk about the fact that the law allows kids to be online at 13. That's not what COPA is about. COPA says after age 13, your children's data can be collected without parental consent. That's not allowing them online or on the platform. There is a big difference. But when we don't watch the words we use, it gets perpetuated into that belief system. And that can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Because these 13-year-olds, I got one.
One thing that concerns me that I think is going to be a challenge, and that is kind of the overly prescriptive nature of some of these age verification laws. They're trying to say, like, oh, if you go into a bar and you want to buy a beer, they serve alcohol, you have to show your ID at the door. So then for certain sites, if they have certain adult content, they think that everyone should upload their
Yeah.
ID. And it's like,
Yeah.
If that happens, like the internet will just go down. Like people be like, I'm not gonna give, you think how many times you're gonna give your
Oh,
ID to websites? That's ridiculous.
yeah. No. First of all, a lot when people talked about adding fingerprints to your ID at the DMV, people lost their ever loving minds. So if people for 1 second think that they're going to upload their government granted ID card to what I consider a taboo site, which is in my adult brain, the no sites that you don't want anyone knowing that you go to, right? Why are you going to give no? That takes away the anonymity. But now instead of saying it that way, people go, "Oh, freedom of speech, First Amendment." It has nothing to do with that. You don't want to be caught on a list of people who verified for being on that platform under whatever anonymous name you gave yourself. I mean, be honest. Be honest. That's the kicker. I just that's my thing. Be honest. I don't ask for much, just be honest.
Yeah.
Our kids are getting into things because and again, let's be honest. How hard is it for a kid when I'm on a phone call? Like I'm on this podcast right now. Do I know where my wallet is? I have an idea. Am I looking at it? No. How easy is it for my kid to go snag my ID and go upload it to Pornhub?
Right.
Can I also just add that squirrely third child that I am glad I have not named, for fun once a year, typically he goes on to one of those types of taboo sites and subscribes me to a newsletter. These are my children. They think they're funny. They got jokes. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, I love every single one of them. I wouldn't trade them for the world. But usually that's I better give him a call.
Oh my
I must
goodness.
not have called. We must not have spoken last week or two.
Oh my
You know?
goodness.
Oh
Well,
yeah, they're a hoot.
if it were the world according to you, Lisa, and we did everything you said, what would be your wish for privacy anywhere in the world, whether that be regulation, human behavior, or technology?
To make the world a better place, we need a balance of all three. We need a balance of all three. Technology doesn't just mean the devices in our hands, and we have to remember that. It's important for us to regulate our own selves and teach our children how to regulate their selves. Like I talked about, teaching your child delayed gratification, teaching your child to regulate their own schedule and take breaks and go do something different. And yes, there's apps for that. And it's okay to be app directed if you need that. But tr- take that family digital cleanse. You talk about regulation, you talk about human behavior. We model that behavior. And what we do today affects the next generation and the next generation. So it's important for us to role model that behavior today to create a better future for the generations of tomorrow and those to come. And technology is just going to keep getting bigger. The people who want to fight technology are the ones that are going to be behind. There's no question in my mind about it. I think that the ideas of the phones in the sacks, that's a band-aid, people. That's a band-aid. I welcome it and I appreciate it and I understand where it comes from, but that's a band-aid. What we need to be teaching kids is how to self-regulate. We need to be teaching kids how to eh, be present in the moment and again delayed gratification where they can and that you know what, I don't care if people like me. I like me. It's more important to teach your child that if they can every single day get up and look themselves in the eye in the mirror every single day, that is what matters. Because you don't have to sleep with anyone else for the rest of your life. You have to sleep with you. That's advice from my mom. My dad, there's no saturation point to knowledge. So technology isn't going to stop. We have to start integrating all three of those: regulation, human behavior, and technology.
That's a great answer. I love that. Very human-centered answer. I think that's the way we should be going. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm really excited to be able to talk with you and have you on the show. And I'm sure everyone will be really excited. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you and learn about Authenticid?
Definitely through the Authenticid website. Definitely my email, lisa@authenticid.com. You can follow me on Twitter, on LinkedIn. You can, Lisa Man 6 is usually my handle everywhere. Again, mom of 6. So yeah, follow. We're on Facebook, and I've got this great little community I've been building on Facebook called LEAP, which stands for Leading, Empowering, and Protecting Children. LEAP. They're leapers. It's a group of parents and C-suite executives and educators that are creating a community together to protect kids on and offline.
That's excellent. I love your efforts, and I'm really excited about the things you're doing. So, really happy that you're on the show, and we'll talk soon for sure.
Absolutely. And Debbie, one more thing that I want to put out there. I just recently finished writing a children's book. It is the ABCs of blockchain technology. It will be available before Christmas. I am super excited to share that. I didn't understand blockchain. Like I told you, and we laughed about it. 5 years ago, I barely knew where the on button was for my computer. And now I'm writing, because I think the earlier we teach kids terminology and we make it fun, they don't even think that they're learning. And we're talking about the alphabet. This is going to get right into their wheelhouse. It's going to be fantastic. But I'm excited. That'll be out before Christmas.
That'll be exciting. Thank you so much for sharing that. Amazing.
Not a problem. Scoop.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about what you're doing, and I'm really excited that you were able to join me for the show. So, yeah, we'll definitely talk soon. So, thank you so much again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate it. Any cool people that are looking to talk to us about Authenticid and get your kids authentic keys, definitely reach out.
Perfect. We'll talk soon for sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Debbie.